Hello everyone. One of the monsoon days in Pune, typical monsoon days in Pune, where we have the feel of climate of Pune. And we are at a place, Let's Enterprise, doing our podcast with Urmila. And she is one of the few parents who took the bold step in 1990s when these all concepts were new to India itself. And from there, they have been the guiding light to many parents, and maybe we can call her the mother of unschoolers in terms of her experience and the way she has guided so many unschoolers to the journey of unschooling. So today we are here at Let's Enterprise office in Koregaon Park, Pune. So welcome Urmila to the show.
Thanks, Harshad, for inviting me for this podcast and giving me this opportunity. I actually always jump at the opportunity to talk about these things because I really feel that the more the ideas come out, the more people will realize that this is a possibility. There are so many possibilities. And it's not exactly true that homeschooling and unschooling was a new concept. We started in 1992. It wasn't a concept.
Yeah.
I don't know, nowadays people find it difficult to even imagine. Even I can't imagine a life without internet, pre-internet years, where there was no information, there was absolutely nothing. And for me, it was just that school is not a place for a child to spend their childhood. It's just doesn't feel right somehow. So I just didn't send my children to school. There was no concept, there was no idea, there was no ideology. We didn't know other families weren't doing it till many, many years later when internet came. And then we thought we were doing homeschooling, and I was very excited. Homeschooling, everyone is doing homeschooling. And then we met a few homeschoolers. And then slowly, I found that we weren't really gelling. And then further on the internet, I realized, the way we are being, I like to call it a way of being. So I realized the way of being of ours was called unschooling. And worldwide, we don't like the word unschooling. Neither un makes sense, nor schooling makes sense. It has, but that's the word we are stuck with. And we use it, no problem.
Nice. So, Urmila, if you could elaborate how this inspiration or how this thought at all of not sending your own children to school, how did it sound with the society and with yourself? Like how could you digest the societal pressure around it and everything? Was there any pressure kind of thing? Yeah.
I don't think we faced pressure because my just soon after we got married, while I was in the late stages of pregnancy, 1992, we shifted to Pune. My husband's in-laws, my husband's family had a property in the outskirts of Pune. Now it's Viman Nagar. I mean, it was Viman Nagar, but that time it was outskirts. And so there wasn't much society around there. So occasionally when we met people, they would argue. They would find it funny, and I would argue. And over the years, I found that the arguments needed to be less and less. And as I became more and more convinced that what I was doing made complete sense, I found that those outer voices also changed. Even later, I started to tell other homeschooling and unschooling parents that actually those outside voices are your own inner voices, and that once your inner voice becomes very firm and like natural, other people started admiring me. So over years, it was interesting to see that shift inside me and therefore the shift outside.
Yeah. So what I understand from what we have spoken up till now is the inner being and the inner world made a lot of sense, and the more your inner being became clear, you could tell possibly the world that what was on your mind, and the world understood it better. So did you take any steps to develop this inner being of yourself, or the guiding light of yourself, which kind of stood very clear at that moments of questioning, or different sort of things coming out in that era?
Actually, it was during the journey of life in general, I feel that not only me, but people who land up in this kind of inner journey, inward journey, shift from an outwardly facing journey to an inwardly. Many people, I mean, there are millions around the world down the age, especially in our country, or maybe especially in the East. Um, uh, it's just the challenges of life in general, and therefore my challenges in unschooling that kind of turned me inwards, because I found that the outward was not making so much sense. Shouting at children didn't change their behavior. It doesn't change the situation. I keep telling people, does it help? Then why are you still shouting? And so, whereas I found that turning inwards, I developed new eyes. My observation became more, clearer. Until now, it's not like, oh, I became some poncha hua insan. It was more like it keeps developing, it keeps becoming clearer and clearer as we proceed.
Layer by layer, it
Layer by
unfolds
layer.
itself.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And it's been 30 years you're on this journey, and
31 today, my daughter's
Yeah.
birthday today.
so happy birthday to her as well. And
Thank you.
oh, so what a coincidence today, and this is happening today. Wonderful. So, how has been the change over the 3 decades? If we go back and see, because 31 years is a huge demographic of time. Pune city was just turning the tide, and last 1 decade or so, the city has changed its landscape totally. So, what has been your experiences with the acceptance of the society in terms of this alternative ways of education over the last 30 years?
I feel that the acceptance has really grown like anything. From 2009, it started to, grow. And by 2011, I felt an exponential burst. But I feel that parents are still scared, more scared, because now it's twofold. On the one hand, the information age has really increased the possibilities, the kinds of earning things that people can do. Children can actually follow their passions through Let's Enterprise. When I've been out to meet the principals now in this year 2023, I've heard stories that post lockdown, post COVID, the students have been at home and they've been also exposed a lot to learning over the internet, even mainstream students. And they all have this confidence कि हम कर सकते हैं, हम करेंगे, हमको करना है, which wasn't there pre-COVID. They thought यही करना है, this is the only way, there's no other way. So on the one hand, this information technology and all this has completely blown open the possibilities, multifold. On the other hand, the fearful information that parents are for some reason listening to, I don't know why they're listening to it, because it's bunkum information. It's just putting fears for no reason. When I was young, I already knew so many friends who, without college, they had started multi-crore NGOs, businesses, without their college or anything. Now, all the more you can do it without. So, I really don't know why everyone is so scared take degree. And it used to be a big thing, and I don't know why it still is. We'll do the degree, so for safety. No one has used their safety degrees. So, why are they wasting their time? Worse than wasting time, what happens is during those years, they say unschooling, you're wasting your time. Actually, this is the waste of time. Studying, you're wasting your time. Your free time is well invested. It's free. You have freedom. You have a habit of freedom. You have experience of freedom. You have a hope in freedom. You have no fear of freedom. Whereas if you go to school, every year you become more and more afraid of freedom. More and more closed in, more and more your mind is Uh, but I also don't like to criticize school and things, because there are marvelous people who are coming. We are all school. I think we are marvelous. So that's another thing I like to say, that I think that evolutionarily human beings now are being born. And as I was telling Saurabh yesterday, it's almost like as if we are being sprouted by Mother Earth to create a shift in consciousness. So go to school, don't go to school. We are now
Okay.
populating the
Yeah.
earth.
Yeah. So I also understand from our previous conversations, and we have had endless conversations, I believe, and you have been a guide until now to many unschooling, homeschooling parents, and one of them is me. Uh, I am quite inspired by whatever work you have done up till now. Uh, I would like to understand that you never worked in a structured environment, and Let's Enterprise was your first job. So, how was this shift, about transforming into a job, kind of say?
Right. So the thing is that our financial situation, since neither my husband nor I put money foremost in our mind. So as a result of it, so when we got married, he was earning 2,700, and if everyone paid me my piano class, I was earning 2,000, and we were in Delhi. And usually I earned under 2,000. That was our total. And we lived in servants' quarters and that kind of one room. And then after 6 months, either say shift karke udhar. And though he was a dental surgeon, he was a dental assistant and a very accomplished one. And I told him quite happily that I was working voluntary in Sri Aurobindo Ashram in whole day from early morning and taking piano lessons in the evening. So we really never thought about money at all. And I told him that once the baby's born, I'm stopping this. And he said, yeah, we never thought how we going to manage on 2007. I sometimes when I think back, I think like, how come we never thought about it? And he got offered a job here in Bharati Vidyapit. So that in May, I left my job because summer holidays started. June, he got a job here, so we shifted here. And it so happened that my in-laws were here in Vimannagar. So I used to commute all the way from here across town for the princely salary of 5,000 rupees. And then when he was, our daughter was 2. When she was 1 year old, after his first year, they didn't renew his contract, and that really scared him. I was still not scared. I don't know, it's just not in me. That's why I'm saying now media puts fears. In those days nobody thought about these things. God looked after everybody. I don't know why they think God is not going to look after us now. I'm not religious, by the way. I'm just using the word God because that's something people understand. So then then all the students went and got him reinstated. They said, Baba, if he's not there, we are all done for. But then during that year, he realized that he has to do something. He has a wife and child. I wasn't working. So then he started, he didn't have any, what do you call it? You have to put up collateral for a loan.
Yeah.
So then people helped, my parents helped security and all that. He got a loan. And so in fact, Aditya's father, in this office, now I'm remembering, had introduced him to the bank and said, isko de do loan. And he started his clinic right opposite here in Shangri-La Gardens, his first clinic. And my mother said, now, you all will have to tighten your belts till the loan is paid and this, that, and then nothing. Within the first week, he was a brilliant dentist. He did very well. We became very rich. We had two big cars and drivers and built a beautiful eco-friendly bungalow and had, 2 decades of complete luxury comfort the children grew up in. And then, of course, the tide changed. When he was in his 50s, he he said, I'm slogging here and you're all enjoying. And we also agreed with him. That's true. Thanks to him, we were enjoying. And that really wasn't fair. And he said, I have always wanted to express my creative side. And so he went to do a master's degree in Exeter University in creative writing.
At the age of 50.
Yeah, in his 50s.
Oh,
And he also went to a Steiner Institute and did speech and drama, where my daughter and son-in-law were. And and then he was also into real estate, and that the property of my in-laws went into redevelopment. So that also had a lot of challenges, because they really, the builders gave us a real run around. And it was very challenging times. And then the finances started dropping, obviously. And the final straw of that was that my one son surprisingly got admission in a US college. So, yeah, so then I decided I better help now with earning money.
Yeah.
So that was the long answer to your question. How come
Yeah.
I've taken up a job and I'm doing
Yeah.
things to earn money to support my husband? Why should it always be the man?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I understand that you have unschooled your children, and then your son getting into college at USA. Like, how did that happen? Because how open are colleges in India about unschooled children, and how open are the American colleges open about the unschooled children?
So in India, they don't know about homeschooling and unschooling. Even America, they didn't know. The colleges hadn't heard of unschooling, though there are many. There are. When I first looked up the internet, how many homeschoolers there are in the US, it was 2 million. Recently, somebody online on one of the groups, homeschooling groups, said now it's 5 million homeschoolers. US from 2009 is the first time I heard one Indian mother who have settled in the US telling me that the Ivy League colleges and universities, the big universities who are in the know of what's what, love homeschoolers. The reason being is that the parents have been invested in their children's education. They've taken an interest in their children. They know what's happening. They've helped their children to develop their passions. The children are studying what they're passionate about. So if they've come into college, it's because they want to learn. And
Yeah.
they are learning what they want to learn. So it's not like they are learning for a job or for a high income or for some other kind of goal. It's for the learning itself. So when my son filled in the Common App, there's a section on homeschooling for homeschoolers, but we are unschoolers. So it was quite panicky for me, because the mother's supposed to be the teacher and the counselor to fill up those parts. I
Yeah.
have not been the teacher. I wouldn't know how to teach. And I'm not a counselor. So I wouldn't even know how to fill in those things. So instead, I just very authentically and truthfully said that we are unschoolers. This is the way it is. He's totally self-motivated. He was at the age of 18, he didn't even know how to write. When he was young, from the age of like over 4 years, he was addicted to video games. A week before his 14th birthday, he said, "Mama, I'm going to give up video games." I couldn't believe it. He gave up just like that and deleted all his, all the stuff. I don't even know what it's called. It's like an adult deleting their bank accounts. He deleted everything on his 14th birthday and shifted into football, weight training, just the opposite, diet, And that he did that for 4 years till he was 18. But he didn't yet know how to write. He read very early from young. And but he almost like 4 years old he could read, but writing he didn't know. My daughter was the other way around. Like, she learned how to write before she could read, because she loves writing till today. She fills up exercise books with writing from small till today. Every day she writes. And at the age of 18, he found that he couldn't make it in professional football. He just didn't make the grade, and for 3 days he was really depressed. But then on the third day, he said, "I want to study." So I got quite frightened. I said, "Now, I want to do exams." He said, I said, "Do you know what is an exam?" He said, "No." So our friends Ajay and Mona Dalmia had just started DLRC. They had one student in July. So we approached them. It was August. He was their second student, and they helped him from first. They said, "Okay, let him try and do NIOS." But within a few days, they said, no, he can do IGCSE. They taught him everything and he did it brilliantly. Then they moved even further. It was far for him to commute. He used to get tired and they shifted to SOS and it was quite exhausting. And they had also become very much bigger so that, individual attention that he had enjoyed wasn't there. So he homeschooled himself for A-levels. It was very challenging. We didn't realize A-levels is much tougher than than IGCSE. So nor did he know, nor did we know. So it was challenging because neither John or I are real teachers as such. He did it, he managed. And before his results were out, then we had the Mohanans, KP Mohanan, Professor KP Mohanan and Professor Tara Mohanan. He had done their Think program. And they also wrote his recommendation letter and he wrote a very good essay and you have to apply to many colleges and 3 of them responded favorably. So he chose Reed. Again, my husband and I never thinking of money. We never even looked at the website. We just 2 years into the thing, my husband said we are in debt now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Cambridge 12th program, that is the A plus level, is very demanding. At times it requires 3 years of commitment for some countries, and some students take it for 3 years. But the O level of 10th grade is quite simple.
Student friendly.
Yeah, the O level is quite friendly. But the A and A plus level is quite challenging and quite demanding. So I understand that you received a lot of help, I would say, or guidance from a lot of people. And was that a way that you carried it forward, that whatever help you received, you carried it forward to the community of alternative educators?
I received help and guidance from who?
From in terms of like Ajay and Mona, and when you needed, or in whatever ways you required help, you had someone to guide or mentor the children.
Ajay and Mona, he was with them for 2 years but I have not been able to take that forward because I am not a teacher.
Yeah.
So neither can they help me nor can I help others. They helped him.
Yeah, not in those ways, but in other ways you would have you have taken the help ahead in different direction, like guiding them towards unschooling resources or having conversations with them. So you also mentioned that a lot of families dropped by at your house to understand.
Yes.
So
because we were there from before, I don't think of it as help and guidance. It's more like we have gone through some experience before. So then, and people have heard of us because, as I told you, I would jump at any opportunity to talk, like on this podcast or newspapers or, so whenever anyone would say, hey, a reporter wants to interview, I would wait and wait and wait. No one would reply. Then I would reply. I can't let it go. So I was a lot in the newspapers, all the newspapers and NDTV and all that. So people would come to know about us. So they would visit us and we would have like a conversation. This is not help or guidance.
Right. It is co-learning together or, understanding perspectives. Yeah.
Nowadays, lots of people give help and guidance. I don't know how to give help or guidance even to my children, leave alone to parents. That's unschooling.
Yeah, so we have heard certain stories of your life, but I believe you have 3 children and your son has got into a college at US and your daughter as well is studying and she's doing something. What about the third child? Like in India, or he also traveled abroad and studied, or what was his interest?
So Neo from very small has same like my daughter's very, very many interests. So they, I like to say that they have a beautiful day. So in every day of their life, from small till now, it's like almost a seamless progression of a maturing of the same kind of integrated being. So whereas my middle son was interested very much in one thing, then in video games, and very much in football, and now very much in physics, maths and physics. Like that, they are interested in many things. So she was interested in several things, and they follow them up every day. So every day there will be, some component of music or art or something, and movement and creativity every day of their lives, every day. And it's really fascinating and joyous for me as a mother to see that a human being can grow like this and continue into adulthood like this. So he is now 23, and from small he really didn't like English script, for example. Many things there are. I'll just start with this example. So he learned little bit of Japanese. He said, I want to learn Japanese from a Japanese boy, a real Jap. So it took me 2-3 years to find a real Japanese boy who was here for some holidays, a college chap, and he would come every day. And pakka Japanese style, very neat. And he brought what do they call, the study kind of sheets. And I found it very funny to see my Masti boy suddenly sitting down at the table and writing and being like a good student and doing homework. And I was very sad when that teacher or young student had to go back to Japan. Then he learned a little bit of Bengali script from a friend of mine. And then I taught both my daughter and him Devanagari. He fell in love with Devanagari. They both learned full Devanagari script. Because first of all, it was phonetic. Then second of all, it looked very pretty and curly-whirly and all that. Then the next... in fact, he kept learning languages, scripts. Then he was irritated with English spelling. He didn't like the way the alphabets looked. So he would write the alphabets the way he wanted to. Then some of my husband's siblings were left-handers, and they used to tell us how they used to really harass them when they were small, torture them to become right-handed. So he tortured himself to become left-handed. So even when he learned guitar now, he's learned it ulta. I don't know how. From the internet he's learned, looking at it this side and learning it that way. So he's done many things like that. He added some alphabets to the English language. He made his own mouthtionary because he didn't like the dictionary spellings, and many creative things. I made big charts. And recently, when he was 16, 17, he learned full Telugu script. He found that even more pretty than the Devanagari script. So that's the kind of things he would do. Then he's taught himself. I taught him little bit of music theory, both my daughter and him, but they taught themselves fully. She sent herself up for exams herself, trained herself. He taught himself piano from the book theory. Like I taught the theory, then he taught himself piano. She's also taught herself piano. She went to a teacher for some years, but now she does it on her own. And he's taught himself flute, guitar, ukulele, many instruments. Now he started on violin, absolutely without teachers. He's learned songs in different Indian languages for different age groups, right from lullabies. They have some really scary Kannada lullaby, and he has some really beautiful lullaby of, like how golden, that beautifully poetic lullaby in one of the South Indian languages. I can't remember which. And then he went to Swaraj University for 2 years, and he was rather young. He was 16. They start at 18. So it was quite a challenging and an intense experience for him. But neither he nor I ever regretted it. I used to keep being frightened. I said, Baba, did I put you in too young? And he says, no, there's nothing I'd rather have done when I was 16, 17. So I'm happy that I went. So Swaraj is brilliant, the way they help you, discover yourself, go through all your how to handle emotions and everything, and help you find your passion, your talent, and unusual things students have done there. So he found that he loves to be playful. My husband and his seven siblings, they are all very playful, very good with children. And many of them run NGOs, and 2 of them run a nursery school in the garden where we lived and the children grew up. They also, when the children grew up, it was very nice because my in-laws were into, these two were teachers. And they always organize music and drama and all in the holidays when the
Yeah.
cousins would come. So our children got exposed to all that. And so he got a job in the Atelier School in Bengaluru, facilitating these games. So he's very creative. And that Rhythm Agarwal, she's the principal. I really like the way that she appreciates the unschooly kind of thing which he brings to the school. And so she keeps, now he worked there for 2 years, then there was lockdown, he came back home, but every so often she invites him every 2-3 months to do full 2-week workshops. He's just come back from there. So Let's Play he does with slum children, with orphans, with homeschoolers, unschoolers, online, offline. So many things, so many things.
So, whatever love you had for music has somehow got transferred to your children, and I'm very inquisitive to know that though they have not been to a school or any structured environment, they have learned so many things, like all your 3 children. So, was there any curricular goal, or the children decided for themselves that we would get into this and then try out, and then how does it work? Or what is your take on the curriculum of schools these days and the depth it has? And when one is exploring, how depth can one reach to?
Yeah. So this is a question I really value, because it's a message I really want to get out to the world, that we are sorely underestimating our children's potential and our own potential. I say, parents, now you get off your children's back and start following your own heart. When my husband left his clinic and went into creative activities, we heard of this word unjobbing. So so the other fathers also have been unjobbing, other people also have been unjobbing, and then because of, again, the money does go down. So that's another thing I want to say, is that I personally, if there is no created need, and if there's no conditioning around money and comforts and what we need, I have a feeling a lot of us could do with a lot less than we think we want. It's the unhappiness that craves comfort. It's the unhappiness which needs to go and distract yourself with a holiday or a movie. I'm not against all these things, enjoy life, but I'm saying there's a deep joy inside each of us, and if we follow it, we don't need much money at all. This may be a controversial statement, but this is my personal opinion. And the reason why I'm feeling very strongly about this is because we have spiritual children who are being forced to study in quota. I mean, it's so ridiculous. I don't know how. I get very emotional when I think about this. We have children who, we have 6, 8, 12 subjects, which we all agree are mostly no use, 99% or no use to 99% of our students. Internet has brought thousands of subjects, thousands of parts of each subject. And one child at one part of their life will be interested in going in depth in one part of one of these subjects and may not even make that into their career, but today they're happy. Why can't each child be happy every day and know that happiness is their right, or joy is their right, or even unhappiness and difficulty and challenge in following what you really want to do is their right? That if they fall down while learning how to walk or run, or when they are frustrated when they're trying to solve a math problem which they only want to do, why we have the right to all these kinds, both the joys and the fears and the everything that goes with following your own passions and your own heart. And it's very surprising to what depths children will go. For this, adults really need to follow their own joy and understand the build their own, strengthen their own nervous systems, and guard against the fears, and there's a whole, I mean, ways in which you can do. This is really a country which has lots and lots of teachers which can help adults to overcome fears and go deeply into themselves. And it's not necessary that you have to be spiritual. You can be artistic, you can be cultural, you can go into languages. There are friends of mine who are adults and parents of unschooling children who are doing courses on Coursera, which are never going to land up in earning money or career or anything, but they're such happy mothers that their children can be happy as well, because they understand the joy of learning something which they love. So they will never stop their child from learning something, saying that अरे बड़ा होके कैसे कमाओगे. So children can go very deep. So that's another thing, is you have to develop new eyes. That's what happened with me. I developed new eyes to, when I see a child just lying down doing nothing, they are actually going in deeper into life. And I feel that life, the person, that's either the child or you, or both, and the thing which you are doing is actually one. I know this sounds very spiritual, it's difficult to understand, but please understand that this child is not some individual. You are not some individual hanging around struggling through life. You are an integrated part of yourself and life and your actions. You know, the doer, the doing, and the person who's watching it, it's an integrated thing. Your activity, your thought, your words, your actions. And I don't know how to bring people to this understanding, but I plead with the adults to have faith in yourself, have faith in life, have faith in love. And I think immersing in love can, love of yourself, love of your child, relaxing into love is a message that I would really wish, especially in these times when there's so much of polarization in ideology. Can we really get along? Earlier in this country, we could get along with someone who has an opposite ideology to your own. We have always lived close to each other in villages, close to each other in building societies. As communities. And
as a one
you can
unit.
eat what you want, you can think what you want, you can vote who you want, but we will still in our festival give you our sweets and take your sweets.
Yeah.
Not be angry with each other.
So what I understand up till now from our conversation was some of these values of just being and joy and politeness played a very pivotal role in upbringing of your children. And now where do you see these values coming out in your children? Because you have sort of given birth to these values in these 3 children of yours along with your husband. So how do you see them coming out now after a span of 20 years in them?
Yeah, so that's another thing. I don't feel that people should teach values as such. I don't think values can be taught. It just so happens that my husband and I are not the kind who go around shouting at our children. We have always spoken to them politely and kindly, and they always speak to us politely and kindly. You won't believe that we have not had teenage. They have had teenage issues, which is something which is physiological and psychological. But as parent and children, we don't have the issues that parents and children complain about in teenage. When they were growing up, we would literally be very patient in negotiating and giving in. And in NVC, I heard one young boy who had NVC parents, and I saw this YouTube video. And he said that the difference was that each family member knew that my needs matter. So even if I can't give in to your demand or your need, you know that your needs matter to me. You know that I wish I could. They know very clearly that I really wish that I could give in to that need. It just so happens that I can't right now. But they never felt that, no, you shouldn't, it's bad, this, I'm shouting or something. If all of us feel that our needs matter to each other. So that made a big difference. So suddenly, as they got into teenage, I found that I'm not carrying all the marketing bags someone is carrying. I've never told them, "Arey, carry, do this, do that." Now with my mother, who's grown old, they're so kind and loving towards her also, and understanding, and all the interactions are very, very different. Very, very different.
So, do you feel that sensitivity is a very important aspect of education and it must be brought into education? Because what I see from the conversations that we have had is children are very sensitive, and somehow when they get into young adults, this sensitivity with parents, with their surroundings, sort of takes a turmoil inside them. So, how has that been sensitivity kept alive in your children and all the children that are around us?
So, actually, to tell you the truth, when they were small, I did shout at them a lot.
Oh,
So, as a young mother, I'm remembering I wasn't so sensitive at all. I used to shout a lot, and I'm quite grateful to my husband that he didn't like it. So and I'm grateful to me that I liked it, that he didn't like it, and I listened to it. So he used to tell me, "Okay, you're shouting at them not because they have done something naughty; they're just being children," which was a fact, and I feel that about all children. But because you're stressed and you are so busy and you're tired, and that's why you're shouting. And so slowly, I also started watching. So that also has been a journey for me to
yeah.
become more sensitive and polite. And a similar thing happened to my mother. She was very strict, so I was probably unconsciously following her trend. When I was around 10 years old, she did courses in transactional analysis. So my brother was 4 and I was 10. And over those 3 years, from when I was 10 to 13, I literally saw her change from being very strict and unreasonable to becoming an absolute friend. Like till today, we are more like sisters. She always looked young for her age. I always looked old. So everyone thinks we are sisters even now.
Oh.
So we've had a kind of a sisterly relationship. So I feel that way also. I don't feel like we have a parent-child relationship either with my parents nor with our children. And so I don't feel everyone should be soft-spoken, and that it's some people are like very, it's everyone has a different personality.
Yeah,
I'm just
different
saying
auras.
that from inside, if you're in if we work on ourselves in a way, do whatever. Some people may need therapy, some people may need yoga, some people may do pranayam, some people may, go to some whatever religion or whatever. Who I also believe in diversity. I think that neurodiversity is equivalent to biodiversity. We have to have different species of humans as we have species of plants and animals in nature. Is very important. So I'm not talking about soft spoken, but I'm talking about like you're saying, correct what you were saying, general sensitivity.
Yeah.
So some people may be boisterous and sensitive, some people
Yeah.
may be jovial, some may be even angry and sensitive. I
Yeah.
had some strict teacher in my school, French teacher, Parsi lady, but we all respected her because we knew her intention was that we should learn properly.
Yeah.
So it's like that.
Yeah. So coming back to your life, I have seen that you have kind of built a lot of network and you promote a lot of other people's work. So, what gives you an inspiration to do this? Because you have been a network of networks to many of the people, and I see that every day you will share at least 2 posts a day on a WhatsApp group, on a homeschoolers group, or a different programs that you have been running, the Pune Urban Village Gathering or the Joyful School programs. From entirely volunteering to it to expecting nothing out of it, but just pure friendships, pure sharing, and pure experiences coming out. So, what has been the center of this all things?
Yeah, so this what happened is, I told you we started back in 1992 out of town. So it was really a very lonely journey, and we didn't have things also for our children to attend. There was no internet, there were no classes, there was no nothing. I used to keep trying to organize things, but then we couldn't get enough children to participate because they were
Yeah.
all going to school. So now when there's so much around, I get very excited. So what happened was in 2007, we went to the US and we attended two huge unschooling conferences. That's the first time I saw like hundreds of families. The whole Marriott hotel from top to bottom was full of our conference for 5 days.
Unschooling
Unschooling
families,
conference,
yeah.
And they
Unschooling Marriott
Yeah.
Hotel in the US.
Yeah. So Marriott is expensive, 5-star here. Marriott is the middle low, like not a very. It's a different kind of. But it was like full of unschoolers, and it was such a joyful experience for me. I found my tribe, and it was. You don't feel lonely. You don't feel that I'm the only, idiot or something. So those two were very inspiring. And then in 2011, we met, Manish Jain had his Learning Societies and conference in Bir, Himachal Pradesh. Again, we met the alternatives community, not just unschoolers, all the people who were first time. Because see, now it's difficult for you to imagine that we didn't know so many people who were doing alternative things altogether. Our way of being, what I'm calling a way of being, which, like I was telling Saurabh yesterday, Mother in Nature is actually growing us out of its womb, literally. And that's the first time I saw so many alternatives people, and we found our tribe, and we forged relationships which till today we are all friends and in touch. And it's been really, when you said that people helped me, and so that was a kind of a community. It's not like people helping or something. It's just that the community is there together. We are in this together. It's like that. So that helped me a lot. Yeah. So then, since that helped me a lot, and we didn't have classes and all these things happening in those days, and I keep seeing on homeschooling group NIOS and studies, and from 3 years old and 4 years old, they're putting them in classes. Are they go for these things? There's long time for NIOS, and by that time, now employers are not looking for degrees. Now, schools are finding the certifications are useless. They're saying that the degree, in fact, is a negative. You are asking about the US and homeschooling. In the US, the big companies are now wanting people without certification. They're actively looking for people without. So by the time these kids grow up, hardly anyone, if anyone at all, they will be having their own entrance criteria for your employment, for your higher education and everything. There will be definitely different ways of joining. So I want people to be doing all these things. And I want people who are in the alternatives community, such as all of us, who are offering the workshops, art and dance and craft and these Ganpatis and all sorts of things, to get income. Because then if they get income from this, these kinds of things will grow more.
Flourish. They'll flourish.
They will. It's a win-win-win on all sides. The children get something nice. Parents can follow their passions and start offering classes. Also, I find that this whole thing of doing things voluntary, makes people admire people who are doing it for free, and then it's unsustainable. So if we at least change that also, I want to even change that perception of me. That, oh, she's so good, she does everything for free. Oh, she's so good, now she's charging, so y'all also charge and y'all also be good. Let's all charge and do good things. Why is it only that for IT you'll get paid, and for good things you don't get paid? Why are NGO people not being paid more? Why is all the good work not being well paid? And I love Let's Enterprise, because that's the bridge. And that's the reason I can work here. I wouldn't be able to. Like Ridhim Agarwal of the Atelier in Bengaluru acknowledges and sees in Neom some gifts which are very unique for her school. I feel very touched that Let's Enterprise has recognized something in me. I don't have mainstream skills, and I've been a homemaker and a community person and working for free, so I don't even have money skills. But they have seen and acknowledged and valued that. So I really love, when things like these flourish. So I'm trying to encourage these kinds of things.
So from our conversation in last 1 hour, Urmila, a lot of things about sensitivity, a lot of things about family values, a lot of things about in-depth of education. So any closing message that you would like to give to our listeners about your closest or the most valued experience in this journey of 30 years? 3 decades is a huge time frame. Yeah, so recollecting all that and any closing statements for the day.
Thank you for asking, Arshad. The main message I would want parents to have is that you are a golden human being. Your child is a golden human being. Your spouse is a golden human being. There are depths and depths of which you cannot even imagine. And over this 30 years, if there's 31 years, if there's something my children have taught me, it is just a glimpse of the depths to which all of humanity can reach, all of us. Whether you go to school or not, we can do this. This is my message.
So let's be joyful in whatever we are doing. Again, we would like to thank our supporters due to whom we could record this podcast. Let's Enterprise Space for hosting us today and offering us their space to conduct this podcast and inviting speakers. Thank you, Urmila, for bringing in a lot of different perspectives of last 31 years of your experience, and more power to you to connect more people and carry forward the connected wovenness of networking with charging people, I guess, now onwards. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Harshad and Saurabh. Thank you for this opportunity.